2022 wasn't really my year in terms of sim racing. You should know that by now. But thankfully, we are in a new year and everything is bound to change. But what exactly needs to change? A new game? Or maybe simply fulfilling our desires with the integration of something like management features? Here are the 5 things we need in sim racing in 2023. And with that, welcome back to Overtake. Expectation and reality are sometimes two different things. While we expect 2023 to be a year of change and growth for sim racing, we can never be sure just how far the reality of that actually goes. Some things are not negotiable, however, if we want this year to be more successful than 2022. Or number 5 for things we need in sim racing in 2023 is something like that. And an evergreen as well. For years, fans of iRacing have kind of asked themselves why rain is not an included feature in the sim. I mean, as much as it was discussed, a real answer has not been found. iRacing is supposed to be the premier simulation platform and features all sorts of technically in-depth development. It's almost as if the team worked relentlessly on making the engine as refined as possible, the monetary system as successful as ever, and the graphics. And after all the work put into the quirks of the title, they were like, nah, let's do the rain later, and never got around to do it. With the amount of money iRacing is costing, it does seem very dry at times. If you don't want to dry out of amazing sim racing videos, then a hit on our like button, a sub and a tap on the bell should make sure to keep you nice and moist for the time being. But back to iDesert Racing. This is probably the biggest no-brainer on this list. After almost 15 years on the market, it should be time to add a feature which is omnipresent in almost every racing title out there, especially if you want to be the cream of the crop in your industry. Some argue that rain is a feature that is very much like a children's toy. You will cry if you don't have it, but once acquired, will barely be used and forgotten sooner rather than later. While I see the point, I think what's most important here is that rain racing is an expression of skill. Adapting to conditions is what complete drivers have to do. We do have somewhat of a confirmation that wet racing will be coming to iRacing, and pictures have also leaked, but nothing is set in stone. So in my mind, iRacing needs to step up here to have a great 2023. A step up in single player competition would be a need for others as well. You guys have heard me nag about GT7 for a while now. This time I will be gentle, I swear. Our 4th thing we need in sim racing in 2023 will be the integration of Sophie AI in GT7. Just before the release of Gran Turismo 7, Sony revealed that they were working on something all new. A single-player experience unlike anything else. An AI overhaul that was supposed to shake up the market. Like a lot of the features of GT7, however, it ended up not being ready at release. Now, this is kind of a tricky situation because there's no concrete date set as to when Sophie will release in GT7. But a whole lot of drivers have already raced against Sophie and gave an overwhelmingly positive review of it. If you want to see an own dedicated video to Sophie AI, tell us in the comments below. Maybe there have already been plans for that. Maybe. But why are we even in need of this? Is the current AI not good enough? If we are honest, single-player racing and the interest in it has decreased astronomically with the general availability of high-speed internet in most homes. I think this partly contributed to game devs not really putting in a whole lot of effort to fix that. We all know the not-so-human centipede we can observe in F1, for example. This makes single-player racing doubly unappealing. You will most likely have a better time online, and if you do end up selecting single player, the experience is bad most of the times. Now, a fully fledged Sophie AI that adapts to your driving style and tries own maneuvers, maybe even makes mistakes or misses an apex, is something we could all get behind. If we had the chance to have thrilling races on our own, I bet there are days where we would take that offer. So GT7, do your magic and get in my good graces again with the release of Sophie. Speaking of innovation. This coming year can be one of new approaches. This is also what AMS2 is currently looking to do. While the game is currently one of the most highly rated sim racing games, it is yet to find real success and really break through the barrier of irrelevancy. But that could all change with our number 3, because AMS2 did announce mod support for the coming year. When I read that, I was very sure of the reaction some other members of the Overtake team would give. Modding is widely regarded as a great thing to have for your sim racing game. You could argue that it is exactly that what keeps AC alive and well, even long after its theoretical lifeline should have completed. I mean, I get why some devs wouldn't implement it, as there will always be a tricky gray area with licensing. And if you are looking for official partners from real-life motorsport, that could be a deterrent. But the upsides are massive. And especially for AMS2. Ryza is constantly improving the engine, adding new content, and at this point, I truly don't know anyone who doesn't like the game. Of course, it is far from perfect, but if they manage to implement modding the same way or a similar way to AC, we could see an uprise in the AMS2 numbers in 2023. Overall, I would say we need more mod support in sim racing. Let the community get creative, because in the end, there are fantastic projects out there that get done by people who are dedicated to their work. Automobilista 2 has something on their hands, and others should start grasping for straws as well. 2023 is a year of opportunity. In the case of Automobilista 2, for something new. In the case of our number 2, it is to return to the glorious times. A comeback of esports in sim racing is something a lot of us would appreciate seeing. And I don't mean a comeback to what we had last year. But for once, I'd like to see the same passion and dedication from the esports industry as in 2020, for example. When I think back to how I was introduced to sim racing, it was mainly an effort of digital competition, to be honest. F1 esports, the virtual GPs, or the iRacing series from the Porsche Esports Super Cup to eNASCAR were all pillars of this community. Most of them still do exist, and F1 esports is still the top dog, but the interest from everybody has drastically decreased. In my opinion, a lot of this comes down to the lack of initiative the series have put into their seasons after the golden age started at the beginning of the pandemic. While sponsors and interesting racers flooded in, the way these leagues operated largely stayed the same, where there should have been a large focus on shoulder content and pieces to introduce the audience to the participants. This influx in viewers was taken for granted. The result can be seen now. Declining numbers and a lack of promotion in general lead to a constant downfall of what I once perceived to be another avenue for sim racing to thrive in. I would wish for a series to pick up the scraps of a lackluster run lately and do something crazy with it. Milk these things for what they are and get the content out of them. We need that for 2023, because if not, I don't know how the future of esports sim racing will really look like. For our last number, I do have a very specific idea on how that should look like. When it comes to innovation in 2023, it is not only the part of Sony or Automobilista. Something that enhanced the past year for many players was the release of F1 Manager. So going even further could be our number one need. The idea of having more and more in-depth manager games or features in sim racing in 2023. Everything happens for a reason, and the reason F1 Manager was so successful is because a lot of people are interested in racing games, but don't always want to race. Having F1 on it helped, of course, as well, but people ended up loving the idea around it. Titles like Motorsport Manager and others have never been able to encapsulate the feeling that you need for big shot racing. Maybe even the chance to switch between racing and managing, Gran Turismo B-Spec style. In my perfect 2023, we see a big sim racing title introduce real management features such as team creation, telemetry data, and financial allocation to them. Make it so players feel even more important or have differently abled users take over management roles. You don't have to create a whole new game, but just adding layers of depth that don't only include racing itself could work wonders. Can be done in multiplayer as well. Easy peasy. It's just a lot easier to ignore the fact that there is this need out there and hope others fix it for you. F1 Manager was far from perfect and people picked up on that pretty quick. But you can't deny the popularity this game generated. If sim racing titles would replicate this, sky would be the limit. Have we missed anything you need in sim racing in 2023 so far? If so, you can always put it down in the comments below. Should you be interested in how 2023 looks like game-wise, then giving this video here a quick click may help you. Thanks a lot for watching. Hope you liked the video, and until next time, cheerio.